This is the Vince Salerno Podcast, episode 26. On today's episode, we're continuing our discussion on senior projects with Susie Duenas and her film, Oportunidad. Also, we're discussing the first trailer for the Florida Project, MoviePass lowering their prices, and the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie officially confirmed. So sit back and relax because the Vince Salerno Podcast starts right now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Vince Salerno Podcast, episode 26 on this Friday, August 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Vince Salerno, and today I'm joined by, had a lot of special guests these past several weeks. Usually don't have this many special guests. Continuing that trend, I have with me a good friend of mine, fellow filmmaker and JPCatholic classmate, Susie Duenas.
Hey everybody, good to be here.
Good to have you. So tell the people a little bit about yourself, what you do as a filmmaker.
Sure. Yeah, well, like Vince, I'm a student here at John Paul the Great Catholic University. I'm actually approaching my graduation in 2 weeks, and right now I'm the director of a film called Oportunidad, which is a Mexican mail carrier's mother's story about her daughter wanting to go to college, but she's kind of conflicted with those dreams because she doesn't think it's realistic. So it's a family drama, emotional drama, and a foreign language film. It's all in Spanish. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now, and after graduation we'll see what the road lies ahead.
Yeah. It's a really exciting movie you got going. I'm really excited to talk about it. Susie is also a senior project director, which is continuing our discussion on the senior project with Miley, Durbin, Gabe Moore, JJ Schindler in the past couple weeks, and now Susie's on the show. So before we get into that, though, we have our top five, so let's get right into it. First off, number one, the first trailer was released for a new film called The Florida Project, directed by Sean Baker, I believe the director's name is. It stars William Dafoe, and it's... Well, I'm not entirely sure what it's about, but it's like this. William Dafoe plays this motel manager. I believe the motel is like the Magic Castle or something, or the Purple Castle, something like that. And this little girl and her mom live there, and it's sort of about their struggle to get by and make ends meet. And they live, I guess the hotel or the motel is like located right outside Disney World, so they kind of try to like make their own magic while, like, you know, the figurative magic is out there, like, several miles away. This is a really interesting movie, I think. I've heard that Sean Baker's a really talented director. I think his first movie, Tangerine, is that what it's called?
Tangerine.
Heard that got a lot of positive buzz.
It did,
You probably know more about this than I do because this isn't necessarily... I like these films. This isn't necessarily my wheelhouse per se.
No problem.
So, what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, Sean Baker's, I think, what made Tangerine so, I guess, great and just made him such a visionary director is the fact that it tackled on such an interesting topic, which is the transgendered prostitution scene, and so he sparked a lot of, not I guess controversy, but to filmmakers, just like kind of
discussion. Yeah,
no, it brought up a lot of discussion. But I think when I saw the movie, absolutely genius, honestly, hilarious film, and real dialogue. And so it doesn't surprise me that he's coming up with this new movie, The Florida Project, because it feels to me like Sean Baker's the type of director who wants to tackle on the stories that really aren't told nowadays. Because if you look at both of his films so far, Tangerine is about people we wouldn't expect movies to be about, and then The Florida Project is about kids, and with but from such an interesting perspective per se. So those are actually, it's kind of the movies that I'm attracted to because they kind of, I don't know, they're real and they tell the truth. And I mean, I think it's really funny that the film follows a 6-year-old girl who is rebellious, and her mom is got troubles, and she meets this guy, and he kind of comes along and tells him how it is. So yeah,
it's interesting you say that these two films by Sean Baker tackle things you don't, or characters you don't normally see movies being about. Because initially when you said kids, I was like, well, there's actually like kids are kind of a hot topic nowadays. Like you got Stranger Things,
definitely.
you got Logan. A lot of movies are about kids nowadays. But I mean, then you said that it takes such a different approach to a movie about kids, which I totally agree with. It's very much. I love how it's, they live 100 miles or 100 meters away from Disney World. Like I said, where the magic is, and they sort of have to create their own magic, and it looks like they're having fun with it. So it's really kind of cool to see that type of story about this sort of this family that's maybe not as fortunate as most people who actually get to go to Disney World or Disneyland.
Right.
And just talking about on an editing standpoint, I freaking love the coloring in this movie, like subtle purple hue to the whole thing. I've never seen in a film before, and I just love that the motel itself is purple. Like I've never seen that before. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just about to say, you mentioned purple. Well, there's a lot of psychology behind color in film, and purple actually, in just like the psychology of color in general, represents royalty. And so the fact that they're away from Disney World, may represent that, even though they're like, inches away from like paradise, like they can't afford that, so they make their own royalty at the motel. So I think it'll be an interesting take, especially since, as kids we have all these crazy ideas and we have crazy imagination, and I think that kind of combining that with real life issues is going to be a really cool way to like talk, like I guess bring a conversation that hasn't been brought to the table before.
Definitely. And the trailer had a bunch of like those Sundance taglines added to it, so you can tell people really like this. It already has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I didn't know until now, so that's really, really promising.
Good reviews.
It comes out October 6, 2017, so be on the lookout for the Florida Project. Looks like it's going to be a really good one. All right, number 2. MoviePass is lowering its prices. MoviePass is a service that was created to make the movie experience more affordable, and I believe it was about a year, maybe 2 years ago, they offered it for about $50 a month. And then I think for a time, for like a special discount, they offered it for $10 a month, but that was like for, I think, a month. Now it seems indefinitely they're lowering their prices to $9.95 a month, which is about the price of one movie. So this is pretty cool, and it seems like I read an article about what their goal was for this, and it seems like they really do want to continue that that message of making the movie-going experience more affordable for audiences. And I mean, this is like unheard of, these types of numbers. What do you think, Susie?
I think it's revolutionary. I mean, I think it's a really smart marketing move, especially since there's a lot of like streaming services now that kind of give you the same experience that you would in a movie theater. Actually, no, that's completely wrong. I don't think watching it at home can ever top the experience of watching it in the theater. But I think that, having these passes be so cheap is kind of an incentive for people to kind of go back and watch movies on the silver screen rather than just on their tablets or phones at home. Right.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because I think like as filmmakers, we have a respect for the movie-going experience. Like there's nothing like that. Whereas I think the general person may not value that as much as we do, and just like, I'd rather, I mean, if I could see the movie on Netflix versus going to the theater and paying $10.50 to see the movie, I'd rather just go see it on Netflix.
Right.
And I think, this, like you said, it's an incentive to go back and see movies. And I think it's also kind of a response. Apparently, movie revenue is down by 12%. And you kind of see it if you look at the box office numbers over the past maybe 2 or 3 years. Not a lot of movies have reached that really like record-breaking mark. Not that you expect every movie to do that, but movies that you think are really going to be hits aren't. Like, I think, like, take Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it didn't crack $1 billion like it was predicted to. Spider-Man Homecoming, as great as these movies are, Spider-Man Homecoming hasn't surpassed the previous two Andrew Garfield films. So it seems like either people are just getting tired of the movies they're seeing, or yeah, just people just don't want to go see movies anymore at the theater because Netflix is now a thing, and there's so much. It's so much more accessible and affordable to just sit at home and watch a movie on Netflix or Hulu.
Yeah.
But I think this is good. I think hopefully people will catch on to it. I'm definitely going to catch on to it.
Yeah, no, me too. Especially like, I mean, as students, we get student discounts, and now we're kind of going to be thrown into.
Yeah. We need a new discount.
But what you were saying about like the superhero movies, like movies that you'd expect to be big blockbuster winners, are not anymore. It brings up an interesting point because, with the summer blockbuster, that's what it's all about. People are going to go see this. That's why, the kids are going to be out. Families can go. Whereas, like, Oscar winners are usually more toward the winter seasons and stuff. And now with Movie Pass, now you don't have to, I think if people decide to, get on this train and people decide to, get the pass, I think that'll open a lot of doors. People will start introducing themselves to good cinema and, not just movies that, I guess, are those summer blockbusters. So it'll be good for us as filmmakers because that's what we're going into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you could debatably see one movie every single day with the exception of IMAX and those more exclusive engagements, things like that. So yeah, it allows us a chance to see more movies, which is always great. So yeah, especially during Oscar season when you want to get behind the movies that you believe deserve to win Oscars. It's like it doesn't help when you haven't really seen the movie. I mean, sure, you can still vote. You can still be supporting it even if you haven't seen it. If you're just up down with the idea and you've liked the movie, the marketing and all.
Yeah.
But for me, at least, I don't like to judge movies unless I've actually seen them.
Yeah, definitely.
So this allows us a chance to, especially during Oscar season, to see these movies, fairly critique them on our own basis, like whether they deserve to get nominated or not. So
yeah,
a lot of pros to this this service. So I hope people take advantage of it. I think it's gonna. Hopefully, it's an indefinite thing. They haven't confirmed whether it is or not, but God willing, it's an indefinite thing.
And nothing beats the movies.
Nothing beats the movies, exactly. All right, number 3. Daniel Craig has sort of been on and off, confirming, not confirming whether he'd be back as James Bond. There was a report, actually I think I reported on it a couple days ago with Gabe, actually, whether Daniel Craig would be actually back to do another Bond film. And now Daniel Craig has officially come out on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, confirming that he is, in fact, going to be James Bond one last time in Bond 25. It seemed like this is going to be his last one, and I think it's fitting. You want him to go out on a high note, I think, because Spectre. I liked Spectre. I see its flaws, but I can sort of get past them and see that it was a good, fun spy movie. But I can understand Craig wanting to end his run as this iconic British character on a really high note and maybe do things with the character that he hasn't had a chance to do. But I love Craig's Bond. I've said that multiple times.
Yeah.
Skyfall is my favorite James Bond movie.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of Bond movies, but I think that you're right. It is a smart move that this is his last film. He's a classic. He kind of, I think, got people back into Bond. Because the movies themselves are just really well made. He's a great actor. And Bond is a character that's been around since the 60s, I believe.
Early 60s.
Yeah. And so when you have someone that kind of immortalizes like this generation, like this generation's Bond, because that generation had their Bond, and the generations they have their Bond.
He really helped to redefine it for this modern audience.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that, he's in the right for making this his last one. He wants to, like a self-preservation kind of thing almost,
right.
If that makes kind of any sense. Because he's I think that's a good move. Like, I'm not a big Bond movie fan, or I don't watch a lot of Bond movies, but I agree that Skyfall was really good and Spectre was really good. So, yeah, we'll see where this one takes him.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because there's sort of this running gag that the odd movies are the good Bond films, and then the even ones tend to be bad. Because he's done 4 so far. Casino Royale was his first one, was phenomenal. Quantum of Solace was not so well received. Skyfall was really good, and then Spectre sort of got the same treatment as Quantum of Solace, not so well received. So if the math is right, this should be another really good one.
Yeah, only time can tell.
Only time can tell. But I think he deserves one last crack at it, and let's hope it's another good one. Okay. All right, number 4. Despite popular belief, Samuel Jackson is not in Avengers 3 or 4. Kevin Feige said that almost every character in the MCU was going to be appearing in Avengers Infinity War and the following Avengers film. And Sam Jackson has come out and said that's not the case, that his character, Nick Fury, was not on set for filming Avengers 3. They're currently shooting Avengers 4, and he's not on set for that. And not that he really needs to be, but he's not going to be in Black Panther either, which is a all African-American cast, or at least 99.9% of that movie is an African-American cast, and he's not in that either. Not that you'd really expect him to be in that, but...
Sure. I mean, yeah, well, what are your thoughts on it? Like, what are you thinking?
Well, part of me is thinking that this might be a marketing ploy, because Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson did a similar thing when promoting their Fast and Furious 8. There was like a feud going on, which I guess at the end of the day played into the feud they actually have in the movie itself. So I'm thinking this is maybe Sam Jackson playing around with the audience, like, oh yeah, I haven't shot anything for Avengers 3 or 4. It's like, maybe his schedule was just too busy, he couldn't be on set for the actual shoots. Maybe he's going back. He's going to be in it when they do reshoots, because almost every movie nowadays does reshoots. So it's possible he'll be in those. However, if they don't have him in it, I'd be a little confused, because he is sort of like the godfather of this franchise. He created the Avengers in that first movie, and he's sort of been their mentor and their father figure for the past several movies, and he's been absent. And it wasn't until Comic-Con that they announced that he's going to be making a comeback in Captain Marvel, but that's in the 90s, and it's going to explain some of his backstory. So it's confusing, because if this is sort of supposed to be the culmination of everything they've done over the past 10 years, then why not have him, of all people, not be in the franchise, Sure. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I don't really watch... I mean, I saw the first Avengers, and I thought that was a great... I think that was a great superhero film, because I'm not really into superhero movies, but it is a kind of odd to me that either the filmmakers decided that he wouldn't be coming back, or he decided that he wouldn't be coming back, because you're right, he is this kind of, like... He's the piece that's keeping them all together, because just in the first Avengers movie, you kind of see how things are falling apart, and I'm sure in, like, Captain America Civil War, things are falling apart even more, and so when that key character kind of, like, falls through and is not there anymore, well, what have you got left to kind of keep you together?
Yeah.
So I think if the story goes as I'm imagining it or thinking it'll go, there might be some interesting elements there, some interesting feuds maybe. Maybe they're trying to keep things exciting, maybe they're trying to take out a key character because they've introduced you to this guy and kind of kept you on your toes about what's going to happen next, and now you don't know because he's not there anymore. So maybe it's a marketing ploy, like you said. Might be the element of surprise. Maybe he is coming back. Maybe, you know, the end of Marvel or movies, they've always got their kind of 5 minutes or 2 minutes of surprise at the end. So
That's true.
yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up a good point that Nick Fury is kind of the uniting piece that sort of brings the Avengers together when they feel divided. You know, in the first movie, it was actually uniting them that was the problem, and then in Avengers 2, they had sort of been shaken up by dealing with Ultron, and he sort of had to bring them back together and be like, hey, you know, you lost one, that's okay, get up and fight. And now Civil War comes around, and they're in another conflict, and you'd expect Nick Fury to come in and solve that, and he's not there. So that brings up an interesting point of, like, it almost makes his return in Avengers 3 and 4 almost more pivotal, because it's like, who's going to unite the Avengers now, because they are scattered now.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it comes down to this: either he's going to be in the movies or he's not. I'd be disappointed if he's not, but at the same time, if we watch the movie and it doesn't really affect the storytelling or anything, or I don't stop and be like, well, wait a minute, why wasn't Nick Fury in this scene? Then I don't know what's there to really complain about at that point. So
yeah, actually, I have a question for you,
Sure.
Vince. What do you think about like superheroes? Like, I guess in Civil War, I haven't seen it. Like, but this idea of people who are supposed to be on the same team, like kind of going against each other, because like superheroes are supposed to be like, or at least the band of superheroes, they're supposed to be united, and I think that it's very human for us to like kind of have fallouts and arguments and like, you know, this tension between us. But I want to know what your perspective is like.
Sure. Specifically on Civil War in that movie, or
yeah, or like any superhero movie for that matter that's kind of showed that dynamic.
Well, that's a good question. I never had that asked before. With Civil War, I think it was a kind of appropriate, in terms of the character, it was an appropriate development, because Tony Stark has grown as a character since Iron Man. Captain America's grown as a character since the first Captain America. They both had very different ideologies. Tony Stark was very much a you know, I do my own thing. I don't really care what other people think. I just do what I want mentality. I don't care about how my decisions affect others. Whereas Captain America at that time was very much for America, following the rules, following the government. And those personalities sort of stretch and develop throughout the next couple movies until Civil War, where they're both basically on opposite spectrums. Tony Stark has realized that his actions have consequences, and he wants to take responsibility for what he's done in the past. He feels he needs to be put in check. That's why he's for what they call in the movies the Sokovia Accords, which is basically a government deal or whatever that says that the superheroes have to respond to these, you know, world-ending events based on whether the government says it's okay. And Captain America, who's been a very pro-government person, says that's not right, because that takes away our freedom to choose. And sometimes it's not necessarily our fault that we can't, like, someone has to act when those situations go down. And if you're controlled, and if the government decides, no, you shouldn't go with that, and the world is a lesser place because of that, then, you know, who's to blame? So from that perspective, I thought it was a very interesting take, and the fact that it drove them so far as to then divide the team was really, really powerful, because it was directed as a sort of a family drama rather than a big rock'em sock'em superhero movie, which I think is what is making the genre still, that people are realizing that we don't have to just make superhero films. We can make political thrillers and family dramas and space epics with superheroes. I think that's how the genre will continue to stay relevant when you know the conversation of like superhero fatigue comes up, I always just fall back to that. It's like people are still coming. Obviously, they're making more than $500 million at the box office every year.
Yeah.
In regards to Batman v Superman, which is another superhero versus superhero movie, I honestly did not like the execution of that movie at all. Because Batman and Superman, at least in the comics from what I know, have very specific reasons why they fight. They're not doing it because they necessarily hate each other. They disagree on things, but it intrigued me to see that those two ideologies play out. And I was hoping for something a little more intellectual, where you'd have a conversation with Batman and Superman actually talking over their different ideologies, and then hopefully coming to a agreement of some sort, because they do end up being like one of the closest duos in comic book history.
Yeah.
And then, wow, so many things are coming back to me. On another angle, 2016 was just like the year of superhero versus superhero.
Sure.
We had the Punisher and Daredevil in season 2 of Daredevil on Netflix. And that was very much what I wanted from Batman v Superman. You had a hero who was very much, he was a Catholic superhero for one. He believed in, no killing, had a strict moral code, whereas the Punisher was a man who believed that men are evil and they need to be stopped before they can do more evil. And the only way to stop them is to just, as he says, make sure they stay down instead of getting back up,
Okay.
So I thought that year, it was funny that year specifically, it was sort of the year of superhero versus superhero. I think it's, when done right, it can be a very interesting scenario, because you don't really think about that much. You're always ready for like, oh, I want to see these characters team up, but you never really think about, well, what happens when these two heroes who stand for good and justice disagree? What happens, and what happens to the world? What happens to the world as a result of their conflict? Does the world suffer because of that? It's much like how it seems like the Avengers, that cinematic universe, is going to suffer. The world itself in the movie, not us. The world itself in that movie is going to suffer because the team is divided, and they're going to be weaker when Thanos, the big bad in Avengers Infinity War, when he comes and knocks them on their feet. And, it definitely, I don't think Batman v Superman or Daredevil really tackled that. Like, how does the world suffer from these conflicts where these larger-than-life heroes are supposed to be at the world's defense, but they're too busy defending themselves? So...
Yeah.
It was a bit of a long answer, but...
No, that's okay. And I think I actually, that's an interesting point that you bring up. The fact that you see it more as a family drama, like with a theme, rather than just, a superhero versus superhero kind of knock 'em out, rock 'em, sock 'em. So, I thought I'd ask. It was an interesting question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think that's how the genre is really going to stay relevant, because I think after Avengers, we sort of had our peak of, like, your basic superhero mold. Like, I think the Avengers is like the quintessential superhero movie. Like, I don't think you're ever going to get any better than that. And so the challenge, I think, after that was like, well, how do we not do that, but how do we still make good movies? And I didn't know that they were even going to consider that. I actually was scared when I heard the term political thriller in when they did Captain America 2. But then seeing it, I was like, okay, well, this is obviously the right decision. Screw whatever I thought.
Right. Makes sense.
So yeah, I hope that in the future we just continue to get more solid movies like that. And not that I don't want to see a good rock'em sock'em superhero film, but that no longer, I think, is what will get people in the theater. I think people want to see more in-depth, different takes on the genre. I think that's what's going to keep it going.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, we have one more. Number 5, probably the most exciting thing to come out this week. The Hollywood Reporter has apparently confirmed that Lucasfilm is developing an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. We've heard this rumor for a long time. Is it happening? Is it not happening? Is Ewan McGregor going to be in it? Is he not going to be in it? Does he want to do it? And the Hollywood Reporter says that apparently it's happening. And not only that, they're also developing movies about Yoda and Boba Fett. All these are still in the development stages, but nonetheless very exciting. The one Star Wars spin-off that I've been wanting to see for a long time is the Obi-Wan movie, because I think that's even more than the Han Solo movie, as much as I'm looking forward to that. I think that story, the story of Obi-Wan after Episode 3, is the most intriguing story, and the one that deserves to be told in a spin-off format. So, yeah, I'm really excited for this. He's one of my favorite characters, Obi-Wan. I'm not so sure how official this is, because Lucasfilm hasn't come out and made a statement about whether this is actually a thing. I mean, Hollywood Reporter is usually a reliable source,
Sure.
but the fact that Lucasfilm hasn't come out and said anything about this really makes me wonder. Oh, thank you. She just sent me the link. I was trying to look up the information on this. But yeah, oh gosh, I forgot. There's also a director attached, apparently, so that adds a little more officialness to the story. Stephen Daldry. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Daldry. He did
Stephen
The Hours
Daldry.
and Billy Elliot.
Yeah, so Oscar-nominated director. He also did episodes of The Crown, which is getting a lot of buzz at the Emmys. Or wait, did I say Oscar nomination? I meant Emmy nomination. You know,
They're easily confused.
they're awards.
Sure.
We all want them. Yeah, what do you think about this, Susie?
Yeah, I think it's just very exciting. And this might be just bias. Yeah, I might just be biased because I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
As am I.
Yeah, but it's, I think that bringing these films back, especially nowadays, for audiences that are, the generations that are to come, I think it's a smart move. I'm excited to say the least. I thought that Rogue One, I think that the filmmakers are doing just an excellent job of effectively, portraying, the Star Wars universe. And because I said Rogue One was probably one of my favorite Star Wars films. And I can explain more about that later if you want. But the fact that they're just making more movies, it's just it's exciting me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, when they announced that they were doing spin-offs for Star Wars, I was a little concerned. But then when they said that they were going to be, you'd have the traditional Star Wars saga films, that would be Episode 8, 9, 10, so on.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd have the spin-offs, which would be a little more, genre-based, like what they're doing with the superhero films nowadays. They'd be like, oh, we're going to tell, a gritty war film with Rogue One, or Han Solo's going to be a Western heist movie, or Obi-Wan will be, I don't know what it'll be, but, I was interested in it only because of that. And, I mean, of course, it's Star Wars, too. I'll go see any Star Wars movie.
Sure.
Just let me know.
Yeah.
But I was a little disappointed with Rogue One because it wasn't as big of a risk taker that I was expecting. And I think that's where the reshoots were because of that. I think that first trailer came out and I saw what I thought was going to be a Dirty Dozen, almost, I guess can't really speak because it wasn't really available at the time, Dunkirk-like war film. And what I saw, I still liked the movie. I just didn't like it as much as I wanted to. And it felt like a lot of elements that Gareth Edwards, the director, had fleshed out were not as original as they initially were going to be. And that's when you hear about the reshoots that they issued, and Dan Gilroy coming in and rewriting the script and, I guess, directing some of the reshoots too, which then also leads into Han Solo, the spin-off that's coming out now, or coming out next year, I think, where that one is also suffering from a change in directors, a change in director, and sort of kind of makes me scared because you're not taking those risks that I thought that they were going to take. Because I'm fine with these spin-offs being different and not necessarily staying true to Star Wars tropes. Obviously there are things that you have to keep in every Star Wars film. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was expecting something a little more different, or more of a risk taker with Rogue One, and just hearing what I'm hearing with Han Solo and now Rogue One, it seems like they're scared to take those risks, and I don't know if I want the spin-offs, if they're going to just keep continuing doing these, like, we have to just, we're too afraid to take risks, so we have to do our traditional Star Wars things. But that doesn't mean I'm not excited. I don't hate these movies. And that's where I guess I just float more to the saga films, because I know what those are. I'm comfortable with those. I'm invested in the characters, and like, I'm uber excited for Last Jedi now.
Yeah.
Anyways, not to crush over your love for Rogue One, but
I think it's well, I think, I mean, obviously, like, with our own opinions and perspectives, like, I can definitely see where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I think where Rogue One really worked for me is that it, although it, didn't take those big risks, and kind of leaned more towards, like, using what we already knew, I think that it was appropriate because it was the backstory. It was the backstory of Episode 4, right between episodes 3 and 4. That's the plan, so what happened. And I didn't expect it to be a war movie. Like, you were just saying how, like, you were kind of expecting it to be a little more on the war side, since it is a war. They considered it a war movie.
Right.
But it's a Star Wars movie. It's not a war movie. Mm-hmm. It's a Star Wars movie. And for the universe, I thought that it worked. And I think what particularly, appealed to me most was the relationships in it. Because I don't think Star Wars is about the shooting. I don't think it's about, the cool locations and cool sets up, although that definitely adds to just, like, this, like, grandeur of, the Star Wars universe. But I think what really people crave is, they crave Han and Leia. They crave Luke and Leia. They crave Darth Vader and Luke's relationship. Like, they crave to see kind of, they want to know how they can relate. And as a filmmaker, this is where I think, like, the importance in storytelling lies, is that you're always going to have people with relationships in your films. And if you focus too much on everything else besides that, you're not going to succeed, per se, because people want emotion. They want to feel things. And so in Rogue One, that example for me was the relationship between who was Jyn and her dad. And I think that was kind of the backbone, and because he was the one that invented the Death Star. He made the Death Star plans, and she's just joined the rebellion, and so there's that dynamic of, who do I join this rebellion? I know my dad's working for the Empire, so it just, like, I think that's what worked for me. And with these spin-offs, I think that it kind of will give us a deeper look into the character's psyche, what makes them tick. Because we already know from a superficial point to, like, what makes Han tick, what makes Obi-Wan tick, but I think providing a backstory would be really, really useful and good for the franchise, because it allows people to connect with them on a level that's even higher than the movies that they've already seen. So, but that's my opinion. I definitely understand that, like, people were expecting a little more, but at least for me, that's what I'm at. That's what I care about. The relationships in those films, because I think that's what people want.
No, sure, you're absolutely right. I think, it excels for the most part, I think, on that aspect. And it's definitely a movie I'd watch again. I'm not saying I hate the movie, but it definitely it left me skeptical. Star Wars is a spectacle. It left me skeptical of future spin-offs, just because they did not take as big of a chance that they sort of made them out to be. But at the same time, that's probably the safest bet to make everybody happy. I mean, it is a traditionally Star Wars movie, so, it works.
Yeah.
And you're right, it is a prequel. It's supposed to connect between 3 and 4, so it necessarily doesn't really... In a sense, it is part of that it is essentially part of that episodic
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now
Right.
7, 8.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason alone, if you go outside of those traditional tropes, it doesn't feel like a consistent transition between 3 and 4, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean that ending was almost seamless with the next movie. So
Yes.
so
Yes.
yeah, and then for Obi-Wan, as far as that goes, you know, I'm up for seeing something a little more different, but at the same time, you do bring up a good point. This is a character that is probably one of the most classic Star Wars characters ever, and I'll be up for whatever they do, I guess, as long as it's good. And Ewan McGregor has not been confirmed to come back, but he is their top choice. So I imagine if this is official, he's going to come back. There's no doubt in my mind that they'd get anybody else besides him to play Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
As long as they don't bring back, who's that? Hayden
Christensen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about that, though.
Yeah. I sympathize with the guy, but yeah, that was just not good.
Yeah.
Not at all. All right. Well, that was our top 5. Running down the list, that was the first trailer for the Florida Project. Movie Pass lowers its prices. Daniel Craig officially confirmed for Bond 25. Samuel L. Jackson not in Avengers 3 or 4, and Obi-Wan Kenobi movie has been officially confirmed. And now we move on to our topic of the week, which is part 4 of our senior project discussion. Here at JPCatholic, we're all required to do, not all of us, but most of us are required to do senior projects, which sort of showcase everything that we've learned from our 3 years of being here. And there are 5 senior projects, one of which is my own, which I co-directed with Claire McKay, Windfall Rising. There's Chirp Above Another Sensation, which was directed by Miley Durbin and shot by Gabe Moore. Arc, which was directed by Preston Yarger, produced by J.J. Schindler. Within, which is directed by Angel Carlisi. And now we have La Oportunidad, which was directed by my friend Susie Duenas.
Yeah.
So let's start out by, you just said a little bit about it in the beginning, but what is this movie about?
Yeah, well, it's about this Mexican mail carrier mother who she lives in LA, and she's an immigrant working mother, kind of the breadwinner for the family, and her daughter goes up to her one day and says, I want to go to college. Which to the mom is this crazy, just absurd idea because it's not realistic. And I mean, especially like I can relate. This was my family's story. You're told, I think there's that kind of it's funny.
We got some partiers on the next row.
Next door. But I think the relationship between the mother and daughter is what captivates audiences, and so kind of playing on those emotions of the mom thinking that she's right and the daughter thinking that she's also right, because it's a common story, but it's not told, and so I can give a little backstory if you'd like about how this relates to my family.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, I mean that would probably lead into my next question. Like, where did obviously you said this is kind of your story, so where did this story come from? Why did you feel the need to tell this particular story?
Sure. It's so interesting, like a mail carrier, and people when I tell them that the film is about that, they don't expect that it's about a mail carrier mother. But the reason I chose to kind of just write the story is because I remember listening to a conversation between my dad and his sister, my aunt, and my aunt's a mail carrier. And it was around 2012, actually, I believe. This is before I came to JP. And she was crying because my cousin, her son, had been accepted to CalArts, the art school up in Valencia, and she didn't know how she was going to afford to pay. And that was like, wow. Like, when I was a witness to that conversation, it kind of just inspired me to write about it. Because, stories like that aren't told, and like I said before, stories like that aren't told, and it's a common struggle, especially for my family, my dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family, both emigrated from Mexico to California, and worked hard to be where they are now, and thankfully, with the help of my grandparents and their hard work and generations of hard work, now we're able to be where we are today. But that's not the case for everybody, and so I wanted something that could speak to not only that community but audiences everywhere, mothers, daughters, fathers, sons, that kind of have that struggle of I'm fighting with my mom, or how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to afford that? Like I think those are important stories to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you said that you saw that around 2012 you saw your sorry, was it your aunt that couldn't afford?
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you have the idea and start writing it then, or was it just recently, like a year ago, when Senior Project came around, that you decided to write that?
Yeah. I actually so I wrote it. I wrote the idea down and I kind of shelved it around 2014 because that's, I think, when I knew I was going to be coming to film school. I was like, preparing myself to kind of, all right, what am I going to make when I go to college? What am I going to do when I go to college? And so I wrote it down. I kind of shelved it for a bit because I didn't know where I was going to get a mail carrier, or where I was, where the story was going to go, because I didn't. The nice thing is you can consider this an adaptation because it's an adaptation of a real life situation, and I didn't want to necessarily tell the exact story that I had seen, but I wanted to make it real enough for people to kind of resonate with. So when I took writing short form cinema, the class in I think that was the winter of 2015. I wrote the script in that class, and actually, professor asked me if I could show it to the seniors who were directing projects that year. But I knew that nobody would be able to tell the story the same way that I did because I'd experienced it. Mm-hmm. So I decided to respectfully hold back, and keep it for myself. Although, I think that was the wisest decision. Because I think that because I've lived it, I've seen it, I can effectively capture that story. Mm-hmm. So, and then this year around, the professors had been talking about it for that year, and last year, winter 2016, when senior projects kind of started to arise and people were throwing their ideas, Scoggins and Professor Riley came to me and they're like, well, this is your time, let's see if you can greenlight this. And so it was greenlit and finished shooting, or sorry, I'll start with pre-production. Finished, yeah, that's the most important part. Pre-production, finished that about March, April, and then in May we shot over 2 weekends. We had one pickup day on the next weekend, and then we're at picture lock right now, got our music in, so we're on coloring, and the premiere's in 2 weeks, so there we are.
Yeah. That's great. I did not realize you had that idea for so long. So, it must be really cool to have this overarching idea that you had in 2012, and now it's gone through so many changes and so many people wanting to take it this way and that way, and you're like, no, I got to hold on to this. Because, and appropriately so, like, you feel entitled that this is obviously a very personal story for you. You want to keep that for yourself to tell.
Yeah.
I can completely understand that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You don't hear about that a lot.
No, and it's funny too. It's just like, I'm a Mexican and my family's Mexican, and I think when I had that idea, it was. I didn't think anybody would be interested in seeing it, at first. But then I thought, well, no, if I think it's important, maybe it deserves to be shown out there. So, yeah.
That's cool. And I think there's something very unique you're doing with it, and that it's all in Spanish, and then you're putting English subtitles. So talk about maybe the process of deciding to go with that, and did you have any, complications, or did Scoggins not think that would be the right course of action, or just talk about the process of making that decision?
Sure.
That's a very distinct decision, that especially for a senior project, I think.
Well, yeah, it's actually my film is actually the first foreign language film at JPCatholic, I believe, and so that's a pretty big honor. I think
Yeah.
that's a lot. Some big shoes that have not even been tried on yet. But I wanted to stay as close to the truth as I could, and my family, the interactions between my dad and my aunt, between all my family members actually, are in Spanish, and like I said, staying close to the truth. I think that it just kind of adds, to the honesty of the film. Because if I had chosen to kind of make the film or present the film in English, I think that it would detract from that dream state. Like professors always tell us, movies are like dreams that you don't want to wake up from, because they're like that escape for you, and you can tell how good a movie is when you don't realize how quickly time has been passing and you've been mesmerized for a long period of time. And so when I wrote the script in English and then I translated it into Spanish, but it just worked so perfectly, and the performances that my actors give just enhances it enhances it greatly. When you'll be able to see it at the premiere, the actors, it was really hard actually. I almost regretted making it in Spanish because we were having such a trouble finding actors to play in the film, because although Hollywood is jumping on the bandwagon of let's introduce more diversity, let's get Hispanic, Asian, African American, let's get everybody kind of like going into this industry. As great as that is, it was just really hard for us to find an actor and actresses to play the parts of the dad, the mom, and the daughter in the script. But thankfully, thank God, through the grace of God, man, like he never fails. Actors came and they presented themselves to us and said, I really like the script. We actually didn't find the lead. I think we found her a week before we were about to shoot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she didn't even come in for an audition. She recorded her audition. So I was like, you know what? That's a great performance. Let's have her on. I just, at this point, like, she's good. I'm not going to be like super picky. But she was, her acting, her name is Marita de la Torre, by the way. Marita did such an incredible job, more than I could have ever asked for, because she was my character. And something I forgot to mention is that you were saying how it's cool to kind of keep this idea with you for so long and then make it yourself. Well, the script I imagined having taken place in my aunt's house. And I got to film at her house.
Oh, wow.
So everything that was in my head was on the page, which it was the best feeling in the world when I could see the shots and be like, that's exactly what I see. It's, as a director, I think as a screenwriter, that's a moment of victory for you.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then the other locations too, like I chose them. I'm an LA native, so I got to film at Signal Hill. I got to film in my hometown, and all these locations where I imagined the script all came to life perfectly. So, but like about the actors, back to the Spanish side of the film, they just did a phenomenal job, and I don't regret making it in Spanish.
Good, yeah, because that's like you said, that's a big pair of shoes to fill. That haven't even been filled yet. They're waiting for you to fill them.
Yeah.
So I think that's such a great creative decision. I think sets your film apart. Not just, even if you didn't have that, I think it would still be a unique take. So I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing that, it's just like, that's a very distinct and bold move because, like you said, I'm sure that wasn't easy to direct, but you got this far, so I'm sure the payoff for you is really great, and to have that chance to film in places where the story kind of came alive and you envisioned it coming alive. Another senior project that sort of had that similar feel was Anna, even though with Anna they didn't get to necessarily shoot at the specific location, like they didn't get to go to Idaho and shoot at the hospital where Anna is at, or go to Iraq and shoot in the battlefields.
Right. Oh, they didn't? They didn't film in Iraq?
Well, I mean, what? What?
Continue.
But they still managed to make it work with what they had and still give it that that biopic feel that really made the Schindler family and Gabe, everybody who was involved with the real life story, feel like they were given their that their story was told on a very accurate way.
Mm-hmm.
And to have, in your case, to have those specific locations where the story actually came alive, I think is really great, because you don't usually get those opportunities. I think, at least for us, you don't get those opportunities to really let your vision, like, almost copy and paste in a sense.
Sure. Like, you need a compromise, a little
Yeah,
bit.
you need to, half of our student projects have been shot in our apartments, and
right.
People are starting to complain about that. So, I think the fact that you got those specific locations that really kind of where the film was born, in a sense, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about casting already.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's talk about your crew.
Right.
You had a great producer, Caitlin Slater,
yes.
and so yeah, just talk about her and the other people you had on your team to support you.
Definitely. Well, yeah, as you said, Caitlin Slater was my producer, and Mary Pelchat was also co-producer on the film, and they both were phenomenal. They really let me take control of the director's chair, and they took care of the paperwork for me. They, helped me find the actors, even though that's also the casting director's job. They were just very on top of finding me people to be on set, making sure that all the details were taken care of. And I'm a very detail-oriented person, and so kind of leaving those responsibilities with them was a challenge at first, but after, they proved it to them. They proved it to me, even before I could ask them to prove it to me, if that makes any sense. Like, they just did it, and just, were just the best, I think, producers I've had on a project. And so, just phenomenal job. They're great. For my DP, I had Peter Lobato, who also shot one of my earlier projects, Misty. And
oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah, thank you. And although it was just a directing 2 project, when I was greenlit for the senior project, I immediately knew that Peter was I had to have Peter for my DP, because he comes from a similar background, and he was really attracted to the story and he's just a great cinematographer in general. He's got a lot of inspiration from Roger Deakins and El Chivo, and so he's really kind of got that style and emulated it perfectly. I could tell him one thing and he'd be like, "Oh, that's what I was thinking too." And it's nice when your DP is on the same page as you are.
Definitely.
Yeah. Gaffer Andrew Carlisi, who works so well with Peter. He's one of my best friends, also the director of Within. And then Miley Durbin, who's actually the director of Chirp, was my sound mixer. And Tom Boom, Preston, director of ARC, was my BTS guy. And he's been helping us with posters and just getting the word out there. Very supportive. And who else was on set? I'm thinking Sierra Campbell. Who else? Megan Woodard, my set deck. Blanking on all these names because they're in the moment, it's just you're just focused on the actors, but I'm so grateful that, script supervisor Tian, Grips, Nick Willie, Michael Yahada. Grace Redding. Hey, can't forget about my little girl. I love Grace, one of my best friends. She was BTS, she was also second AC, Jacob Hodavi, first AC, trying to think of who else. My craft services people, I cannot forget about my craft services. My parents and my cousins actually were my craft services people.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they did a great job. Everyone was well fed, and you know what? I think that they have one of the most important jobs on set, and that's
Definitely.
To keep everyone happy, healthy, and alive. And I'm trying to think of who else. Elizabeth Verklin, my DIT, and just overall moral support. Just very supportive friend, and just did such a great job with the footage and took care of it like it was her own child.
As she normally does.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mary Flynn, who was she was my slate. Great person to work with. She's just so sweet and great presence on set too. Very positive.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I might have gotten everyone. I have Nikolai, who's my editor. Actually, he's working on the film right now.
Nice.
I should pull up the list of the people on crew, but
yeah.
I mean, if there's anyone that I forgot to mention, I'm sorry. Like I don't mean
a lot of people on a film set. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. While you're pulling that up, it's really cool that you had your family on set.
Yes.
I think it's always a great thing when you can have your family be part of what you do. Similarly, my older sister Rachel, she came out for Windfall to do makeup, which she did a phenomenal job. And then my mom
nice.
was initially just going to be a driver, but then our craft services kind of fell through, and she had to sort of pick that up last minute. And so, yeah, they both did a killer job.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's always nice when you can have family around, because
yeah,
it just makes it feel more comfortable when you're surrounded by people that you can trust. I mean, also your friends, of course,
sure,
on set, but like
definitely.
your family, you usually have like a very strong, trust system with your family. Like,
of course,
more than anybody, you trust them. So, I think it's never a bad thing to have family on set.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I was saying we filmed in my aunt's house, and so the first day of filming was Friday. We arrived on Thursday to kind of set up in the house. She was actually going to go to Arizona for the weekend so that we could have the house to ourselves. And on Friday, the first day of filming, she came home from work and we were filming a scene with the mother. And I didn't care if the camera was rolling. I knew my actors were we had run through the scene, and I knew they were going to do a good job. I told my aunt to come and watch, and that was just a beautiful moment between my aunt and I. That I'm telling the story based off of her, based off of the rest of my family. Very heartfelt moment, and my cousin actually was he acted in it too, just briefly. He was at the dinner scene table, and my aunt and my uncle, his parents were there, and they were just recording and just very excited to be there. So family was definitely present on this set, and kind of made it made everything, it was okay. Everything was okay, and it's very interesting when you kind of mix home life and school life, and
definitely,
maybe you understand. I think you understand this.
Yeah.
When you brought your mom and your sister onto Windfall. Having my friends who I trust, and my family who I trust in the same location, doing what I love, was definitely just a feeling that I never want to forget. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Any funny memories of making this movie, or on set, or even in post?
Oh my gosh.
Excuse me.
Yes, so many funny memories. I think the first funny memory the first great memory was first night. We finished shooting at Signal Hill, which is like the montage scene of the film, and we were like, all right, let's go home, let's go have dinner at my parents' house, and half of us were staying, or half of the crew was staying with my parents, and then core team and the seniors were staying at the house. And after we had dinner with my family, I was like, all right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. We're gonna go home, kind of watch some footage. And before that, we dropped by the store to grab ice cream and a pack of Coronas, and we watched the dailies, and being in a house that I had grown up in, again with this sense of family, the sense of nostalgia. Being in a house that I had grown up in, and sitting there, enjoying a beer with my closest friends, watching while the dailies were happening, and watching the fruit of our efforts that day. That was a really good memory. Another funny memory. Oh, we'll never forget this. Peter and Andrew, my DP and gaffer, were in the kitchen lighting a scene for one of the very last scenes, and they I just heard them go. I just heard Andrew go, "All right, Peter, how is this?" And Peter just goes, "This is crap. Take it down right now." But he didn't use crap. He used, another word. But I don't want to say.
Explicit,
Yeah, maybe there are children listening to this.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. But I just remember Peter going, "This is absolute crap," and Andrew's like, smiling and trying not to get upset. The fact that he had this big lighting already set up, they had to block out the windows, put up 4 lights by the windows, and so Andrew's like, okay, all right, and so Peter's just doing his thing, being Peter. He's more of a drama queen than I am, actually. I love you, Peter, but Andrew kind of goes up to me and he goes, "Well, Susie, here's what's going on. We can either keep this setup, or and see how it is, or we take it down and see how that lighting is, and if it's absolute crap, then we can just put it back up again, but it'll take 20 minutes as long." And he's like, "Is that okay?" And I was pretty not strung out, but a little tired at that point, and I was like, "Nope, but go ahead." And so, good call, because he took down the lights and the sun was shining in the perfect, in just the right way, the right angle, and Peter got his shot and he was happy. So
cool.
Yeah, so I'm happy.
That's funny.
Yeah, happy DP, happy life.
Yeah. So I've been asking a lot of the people who've coming on for senior projects on this show. So these projects are kind of, like I said, they're they allow us to showcase what we've learned in the past 3 years that we've been here, and they're also, in a way, they kind of show sort of the style that we, specifically as directors, more so take on. Every director has their sort of style. Do you think that this project is sort of a cementation of your stuff? I don't even know if cementation's a word, but I'm going to use it anyways. Do you know if this project is a cementation of your specific style? Do you see yourself making movies like this only in the future? Do you want to be a little more diverse and make movies of multiple genres, or do you just want to stick with this particular wheelhouse?
Sure. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, actually, especially now that we're graduating and we're kind of confronted with the questions of what do you want your voice to be in Hollywood? Where do you want to be in the industry? And I think I do want to stay with this kind of style. I think that this is the first of many, and hopefully many films that I will make, because it's just, the film is really one of the loves of my life. It's my passion. It's what I love to do. But I do think that for the most part, this is my calling, the specific style, the storytelling aspect of it too. I'm drawn to stories, like I've kind of mentioned before, that people don't think of telling. I want to give a voice to those who don't have one, and maybe that comes from just me. I watch movies and resonate with the ones that kind of deal with more emotional issues, and I think that speaks for all of us as well. But giving a voice to those who have it, I think, opens up a door of possibilities. It allows us to reach even further than people have reached before. And so I do think that this is not it doesn't solidify what I'm going to be doing in the future, because I don't know what the future holds. But I do know that definitely this style, these kinds of stories is what I want to do. This is my voice. I want to tell these types of stories about Mexican mail carrier mothers, about hotel workers in Cancun. I'm working on a script right now about that.
Cool.
I want to tell stories about real people, and I want real problems, and because I think that at the heart of everything, that's what we're drawn to the most.
Cool.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing your name next to an A24 logo.
Well, one day, hopefully,
One day.
Whatever
I mean, they pick up more projects than... debatably, they do more projects than Marvel nowadays. So
I'm hoping. You know, that would be a dream come true.
I'm sure you'll get there.
Thanks, Vince.
No
Thank
problem. So last question. What do you want to... I guess, do you want to give like some words to the people watching who have not seen or have yet to see La Oportunidad? Maybe like what to expect.
Yeah.
Or the message you want to get across with this movie.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, if there are people out there who do want to see the film, I don't want to spoil it too much for you. But I do, if you leave the film with a sense of hope, I think if you watch the film and you leave it kind of with this, I don't want to say uplifting, I think that's a little overused in filmmaking today, but I think that if you watch the film and you see the truth that lies there, I think that I've done my job well, because I think that's the most important thing that we can do as filmmakers, is to tell the truth. As artists, it's our job to tell the truth too. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if you enjoy the movie, I've done my job well. But definitely be on the lookout. We're going to be submitting to some festivals, and maybe soon after that we'll get some sort of distribution. Not sure where that's going to be taking us, but there are endless possibilities out there to where this film will go. So I'm excited for you all to be a part of it, and I can't wait to share the story with you.
Cool. Yeah, well, like I said, this is, I think, one of the more... This year specifically, I think, is a great year for senior projects because they're all so distinct. And what I've been telling everybody else that's come on is... at least for me personally, I've sort of gotten tired of seeing the past senior projects be kind of in the same wheelhouse of like drama, you know? Mm-hmm. And it feels like this is all we can really tackle. And of course, yours is kind of a drama, so not to discredit yours, of course. But but the fact is, you're taking such a very distinct take on it, which is why I'm keeping it in this discussion as of senior projects that sort of change the game of what we can do. Like, I don't think there was a single comedy last year or the year before. Now we have Chirp, which is a comedy about a 16-year-old girl's sexual awakening. We have a whimsical Pixar-esque comedy about a grape farmer going up against a corporate businessman. Yeah. You have post-apocalyptic wastelander people trying to get to this safe place, so to speak, not to rip out Mad Max, but, you know. You have psychological thrillers. You have a drama that's told in such a very specific way. I just think it's a great year to... I think now more than ever we have to sort of tell people, like, you don't have to stick to this particular wheelhouse. Like, there are other stories that can be told and can still be moving and have a good message. And I think each of these stories has a distinct quality that's going to change the game hopefully for future JPCatholic students that go on to direct senior projects. I'm really impressed with our class, what we've done with changing the game, and I hope that this sort of sparks a fire and continues that trend, because I do love seeing a good drama. Yes. I just want to see more diversity, you know? Yeah. Of the genres. Sure. And I think this is a great year to start that. And definitely. Like all of the projects, I am really looking forward to seeing La Oportunidad on August 31st, right? That's the premiere? That's it, and likewise. I've been hearing a lot of great stuff about Windfall, so I'm excited to see yours as well. Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, it's great to be able to work up to this point and, like I said, show what we've learned. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an amazing opportunity. Like, not a lot of people know this type of school exists. I remember not knowing where I was going to go to college, then 6 months before I came here, figuring out about this, taking a visit, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to come here. I'm going to make movies, and you know, who knew that our final year we'd actually get the chance to direct something? Yeah, you know, it's a high honor, really. Indeed. Yeah, I remember when I was a freshman seeing the senior projects and thinking, whoa, I wonder if I'll ever get to do that. Mm-hmm. And here we are. So here we are. Congratulations, Vince. Like, this is it, man. Thank you. Likewise. Thanks. Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up our topic of the week, talking with Susie Duenas on La Oportunidad, which you're not going to see for a while. Let's be honest.
I don't think any of the senior projects are going to make it
No,
out
you're not going to see any of these for a
while.
We're going to be taking them to film festivals. If you're in the California area, you can check these out, I'm sure. I'm going to be submitting Windfall to the Omaha Film Festival for all you Nebraskans out there, so hopefully you'll get accepted. We'll see, but be on the lookout for that. All right, well, normally I'd have a shout-out, but I don't. I guess shout-out to the other senior projects. Last week we've already had Miley and Gabe from Chirp Brothers and the Sensations. We've had JJ on, producer of ARC, now Susie, who did L'Oportunidad. There's one more week before the premiere, but I'm going to try to get Preston Yarger and Andrew Carlisi on the show, maybe even Claire McKay too. Our schedules are just really, really tight. I mean, I was really happy that you were able to come on. I was like, is she actually going to have time?
Oh, yeah. Fridays are my good days.
Good. So, yeah, we shall see. That is a work in progress, and I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on that. That being said, Susie, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening, audience members out there.
Yeah. We had a lot of good conversations.
Yeah,
I'm hoping we can do it again soon.
I would love that. Yeah, I'd love that.
I mean, it'll be a while since, as we said, we're both going home, but
yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to do it again in the near future. Where can people find you online, social media, if they want to follow you?
Sure. Well, you can follow the Facebook page, La Oportunidad. I'm actually currently working on making a director's page for myself, a promotional page. So be on the lookout for that. And when I do, I'll kind of link it to La Oportunidad. But for now, if you want to follow the film, keep up on the updates. We're trying to do the best that we can with our busy schedules to kind of keep everyone in the loop. But if you are really interested, shoot us a message, shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, yeah, next week, like I said, hopefully we'll have a special guest. If not, we'll just it'll be breaking my streak. Normally I don't have special guests on here, and I think you're the sixth or seventh guest in a row. So
right. 7's a lucky number.
7 is
perfect number.
Lucky number, my favorite number. It's just a great number.
All right.
All right, well, thank you all for watching this episode of the Vince Salerno podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can check out my short films, trailer reactions, and more episodes of the Vince Salerno podcast. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. God bless, and peace out.